So I ended up getting high with that money. But I had enough sense, and my relationship with God was strong enough, even though I was going through addiction. And this is what I like to tell people, just because you're going through something, your addiction, you're struggling with something, that doesn't mean God is not with you. He's right there with you. He's with me.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point, you realized you were married into crazy.
And that's what our podcast is all about. We offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as we unpack this crazy thing called marriage.
So sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
All right, let's go.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy E.T. Look, if you're looking to, or you got to raise the bar on your marriage, you gotta click the link and get into Married into Crazy, y'all. I'm telling you, this coaching is gonna take your relationship to another level. Now look, you already know you need to raise the bar. You know that already. So stop thinking or overthinking. Click that link, and Marriage into Crazy is gonna take you and your spouse to marital bliss. Now you know. Click the button. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. I'm Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And as all of you know, we occasionally like to bring you some amazing individuals that can actually enrich your marriage. Mm-hmm. So we brought you other couples that have gone through some stuff. We've brought you celebrities, athletes, the garbage man next door. We brought you everybody that can truly invest in your marriage and help you get to that next level. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that today I'm really excited because it's like we're bringing you all the above. I mean, the person that we're going to bring you today is a recording artist, an accomplished 3-time author, a wife, a mother, and most importantly, a child of the Most High. Mm-hmm. And so without further ado, I want to say, Jackie Gouché, welcome to the Married into Crazy podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This is phenomenal. It's one of those things where we get a lot of requests to come on the show, and some fit, some don't. And I'll be honest with you, over the course of the last 3 months or so, because we've had some changes in our family dynamics, I've just kind of pushed everything off to the side. But when your assistant reached out, and I didn't recognize your name, but I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just open this one up. And when I opened it, the thing that hit me, I want to get into a little bit later. I'm not even going to bring it up right now, but there were a couple of points that I thought, podcast or not, I just got to have a conversation with this woman. So we like to jump right into it.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So I need a little bit of background. Can you give the audience a little bit of your perspective of your history?
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, raised in church. My mom was a musician in church. And so my whole family was musical. Her father's a pastor. They're all musical. They all sang. My brothers and I all grew up in music and in church. So I had a really rich foundation for music. But up until the age of 9, my parents were together and everything was wonderful. Then they got a divorce. And at that point, everything fell apart. And from 9 until I graduated high school, we probably moved about 10 times. We were moving every year. And so that is what led me kind of down this path of rebellion, and ended up doing the drugs and all that stuff. And then, of course, after having a spiritual foundation and being raised in church, I found my way back to God because of the addiction, back to church. And actually, I can't really say back, because when I went to church, in my younger days, I only went because my parents took me. Mm-hmm. As a late teen, right. I went on my own, and that's when I developed my own relationship with God. So I have a strong foundation. I have had the pleasure of being the minister of music and worship leader at my church now for 34 years.
Wow.
So we could talk about that and all that entails, because it's kind of like a marriage. Mm-hmm. Having this relationship that I have with my pastor and with the church that I've had for all these years. I can guarantee you probably already know that there were many times that I wanted to quit and I wanted to leave, but I didn't. And so I'm really grateful to God for the growth that took place, staying in that one place
right
for that long. And I'm tickled. I'm laughing because I don't know how much of my story you guys know.
Well, I know probably more than Lovey knows, but
Because I don't know
thing-
if she go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say there's just one thing that you mentioned that I found very profound when you talk about how your grandpa is a pastor. And when you said how you were raised in church, a lot of us, we grew up in church, but growing up in church and really being active and being part of church are very different things, and you don't really realize that initially. But I found it very refreshing when you said how your parents, they didn't like force you to go to church, and it wasn't that, how did you word it? It wasn't that aggressive type of almost, abusive situation,
Right.
when we're forced to, no, you're going to go and and then you're there all day and, things like that. So I was like, when you just made that point about it being a relationship, I'm like, wow, because that is a relationship,
Absolutely. Absolutely. My mother was raised under that strict, abusive, religious,
Right.
oppressive household.
Oppressive. Yeah, that's
So
the word I
she
was
didn't
looking for.
do that to us, but she loved church. She loved God. So she took us. When we want to go, we didn't go. But,
No, it's a beautiful way of pointing out that the marriage to the church. It's funny to me. You said that, the things that you've been doing for the last 30, was it 31, 34? 34 years as the minister of music is like a marriage. And what immediately came to my mind, I was like, okay, well, Christ is married to the church, and that's of itself service.
Exactly.
Right? A lot of service. But then when you talked about you two right now, about how your parents didn't really force you to go, I'm thinking, even that kind of relationship can become toxic.
Yeah.
Even though we're talking about the church.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we're talking about church, sometimes we're talking about the church.
I prefer church.
Right. And it's a beautiful segue though, because even with all of that, the seeds had been planted.
Right.
Then your music career took off.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced? Well, I know it was through the church. A lot of people find their way through their upbringing within the church. You've got so many individuals that have actually done that, the Houston, so forth, the Winans. But how did you make that transition going from growing up in the church to the secular industry?
Well, it was actually my brother, Andrew Gouché, who is bass. He's like the godfather of bass players, the gospel bass. He's played for everybody. He started 40-something years ago with James Cleveland, and he played with Andre Crouch, the Winans, and anybody in gospel that you name, he played with them. And so he started introducing me. He was always very proud of me. He was like my mentor at the time, my big brother. And he would always tell people, you got to hear my sister sing. My sister can sing. So he started introducing me to people that he played for, like Andre and Sandra. They were the reason that I ended up doing The Color Purple, because they were contractors for that kind of job back then. And so when people wanted a choir sound or that kind of sound, they would call Andre, and then they would call me. And so that's how I got into just in the business. And that was both gospel and secular. And then from it kind of just snowballed into me meeting other people in the industry. So I sang background in the secular industry, but my roots are always gospel, and my heart is gospel.
Okay, so I just want to just say just real quick, you said The Color Purple, and I need everybody to know the song that you sang in The Color Purple. I got chills right now, because that was like, everybody tried to sing that song in church after The Color Purple. Everybody. I have a cousin, and she was trying to lead the song.
Oh,
but obviously, of course, it didn't sound anything like you, but it's always such a trip, like when you find out who is behind the music. So tell us the song that you sang in The Color Purple.
It's the song God Is Trying to Tell You Something.
Hey.
The scene in the church, the girl who stands up in the choir stand and she starts the song. She says, how are you out? That's my voice. So she was lip syncing to my voice. And I can tell you, while we're on the subject of this, The Color Purple, I can tell you an interesting story, a beautiful story behind it. When I did that session, I was pregnant with D Smoke, my middle son, Daniel. And I was in and out of sobriety and addiction. So I was struggling with addiction, but I was at the worst of my addiction actually at that time. So I was like sober for a few weeks. They called me, I did the session. Then a couple of weeks later, when I got the check for that session, that was more money than I ever made in my life. So I
Right.
didn't know what to do. It's $1,600, but back then, 35 years ago, for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, $1,600
Right.
was most. So I could not resist the craving that it brought, you know, that money. So I ended up getting high with that money. But I had enough sense, and my relationship with God was strong enough, even though I was going through addiction.
Mhm.
And this is what I like to tell people, you know, just because you're going through something, your addiction, you're struggling with something, that doesn't mean God is not with you. He's right there with
Right.
you. He's with
Right.
me. And I prayed, the day, okay, I have to tell it like I always tell it. October 17th, 1985. I took my last $40 and I went and bought some cocaine. And I said I was going to go home. I'm going to smoke this. Now, mind you, I'm 7 months pregnant. So I'm going to smoke this. It's going to be my last time getting high. So I went home and I smoked it. And then a few hours later, I started having contractions. And he was not due for 6-7 weeks, something like that. But I ended up giving birth to D-Smoke that night.
Wow.
So I got high that morning and I gave birth to him that night. But I prayed. And, you know, I just asked God, I said, Lord, I know I don't have no right to ask you anything right now, but I just pray that you have mercy. And not only did he have mercy and they did not find drugs in his system, or they did not take him away from me and put me in jail, which is what they would have normally done.
Right. Because that's
But
what I was wondering.
he turned out to be the D-Smoke that everybody knows. And if you know anything about him, he's a brilliant, not just talented musically, but a brilliant person. And he always has been. I could always see in him from the time he could talk. Even before he could talk, I could see how special he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was just like God showing me his love, showing me how much he loved me. And, you know, in spite of me, in spite of my struggles, he put his finger on Daniel Anthony Farris, and caused him to be this amazing person who he got a full academic scholarship to UCLA after getting straight A's in high school. Then he graduated from UCLA in 2007. He went back to Inglewood High School and taught Spanish. So, and then of course, if you follow him, if you know anything about D-Smoke.
Because remember he rapped in Spanish. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm sorry.
Did not see the whole, I didn't get to see the whole thing. The rest of the family did. When he came, I got chills again. He came out there. I said, is this brother speaking Spanish, doing his, man, he shut it down. He shut it down. But do you feel like, do you find it, I don't want to say ironic that was the actual song that you sang, and then you went, you got high, but you delivered him. It's like that was for you. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like the Lord was trying to tell you something. Wow, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what's funny is I've now started doing this series. If you go to my YouTube page, you can see the series called Message in the Music. And so I'll play one of my songs, and then I'll give like a 5 or 10 minute message that's found in that song. Because what I've learned over the years is that God has always spoken to me through music, not just personally to me, but he speaks through me. You know, music has a powerful message. It influences people. You know what I mean? It strengthens. Music has more power than people want to admit. And so yeah, he was definitely trying to tell me something.
Wow, that's amazing.
So this means a lot to me personally, because when Netflix aired the series, I jumped on it from the very beginning, because like finally something that speaks to me. I don't got to watch American Idol or any of these other stuff.
Right.
But what was funny was that probably like the second or third episode, I can't remember exactly which one it was, and it was early on in the series. I was like, that brother's dope. I'm like, and it was before he actually busted out and sang, and he rapped in Spanish. Yeah. But when he did that, I mean, I think my daughter was sitting downstairs with me, and we just looked at each other like, oh, okay. And don't get me wrong, there was talent. I'm not trying to throw any shade. There was a lot of talent on that particular show.
He stood out because I felt like, I don't mean to cut you off, but his whole demeanor, even during the whole show, very humble, very, you know, it wasn't like big bravado or anything like that. He was very quiet, just very taking in the scene, looking in. I was like, okay, I see you.
Well, you
Mr.
remember
Smoke.
when Snoop called him out?
Yeah. That was,
but I do have to say this, because I don't want to make it about your sons. And I do want you to actually give a little plug for who they are. But course. I do have to say this. One thing that truly stood out, and this is long before, I mean, we're talking like when it first came out, what really impressed me about him was his reverence for you. He spoke to it multiple times throughout the show. Yeah. And that says a lot about your character, what you went through, what God brought you through, and the impact it had on his life.
Yeah. My sons, you know what? I adored them for their entire lives, and they knew it. No matter what I had to do, how I had to discipline them, what I had to take away from them, or whatever, they knew that I loved them unconditionally above everything else. And so they've grown to do this. It's grown, and to do it's reversed now. Like they do the same for me. I feel so blessed and covered, protected, and adored. My sons really do. We have a wonderful relationship. They are the best thing that ever happened to me, really.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
So, real quick, I don't want to linger here, but go ahead. Can you really quick introduce our audience to at least a name and just tell them,
okay,
the first family, what I call the first family of Inglewood. Can you?
Okay. All right. So my firstborn is Davion Farris, who just signed a deal with Def Jam. And if you haven't heard him, because he's like the last one to jump on the train, but he's amazing, Davion Farris. And then there's D Smoke. Everybody knows him as D Smoke, but he's Daniel Farris. He's the winner, was what we were just talking about, is the Netflix competition Rhythm and Flow with Cardi B, Chance the Rapper, and T.I. They were the judges. And so Daniel Farris, D Smoke, my middle child, was the winner on that show. And then there is Sir, Inglewood Sir, who has some of the most amazing music ever. You're a Sir fan? You know what? I'm a Sir fan. I'm his mother, but I'm a fan. Because that
Girl, I gotta just say this. Like, we're gonna fight over the mic. I told her, I was like, okay, we're going to be interviewing Jackie Gouché. And I go, I want you to read her background, do a little bit of research. I'll do my research, whatever. She's like, okay. So she's looking through it. She's like, okay, this is cute. This is nice. Okay, I really like this. And there were some points that I still want to get into. But she was like, yeah, okay, this is nice. And then she stopped and she's like, Sir. Wait a minute. Sir. She picks up her phone. She's like, my sir?
So I was introduced to his music because, we have a 23-year-old daughter and we have a newly 20-year-old. She just turned 20, and they play their music and whatever. And, most of the time I'm like, good Lord, can you just turn that off? But every now and then something to come on that I'm like, oh, I like that. So Sir came on, John Redcorn. I don't know why that song. I went in my daughter's room and I had my phone out. I said, who is this? And because I'm looking for him now, and she said, that's Sir. And I said, Sir. She goes, yeah. I said, what is the name of this song? And she's like, you like this song? I said, oh my gosh, this song, I don't know what it was, but it just spoke to me. And I got it. And I played that song every day for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
I love that song. I'm like, can we just get Sir to come on and sing that song?
But this shows that in the midst of it all, I'm a true believer that in the midst of our challenges, that's when God does his best work.
Absolutely.
When we stand aside and let him work, let him cook, as they say.
Yeah.
And in your life, God has been cooking because.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I was like, okay, so what's this got to do with marriage? What's this got to do with all?
No, they're into this. I promise you, they are.
I'm telling you now that one of the things that stood out to me, and I'd like to hear your perspective, is one of the things that really hooked me was that you've been married 3 times
to the same man.
To the same man.
My mother's been married 3 times, but it was not to the same man. So
yeah,
I want to hear about that process. Okay. And go ahead.
So I was 20 years old when I first met and got engaged to him, and I got pregnant. And we were in this religious atmosphere. We went to a Kojic church, which they were very, very strict. And, so the whole air was, you can't have premarital. I mean, one of the rules is you can't have premarital sex. So we were terrified that people were going to find out that we had sex. Right. So he's like, got to get married, right? 20. So a month after my 21st birthday, I married him. And so looking back, it was a choice. Let me just say, I don't regret it at all. I don't regret anything. I don't do regret. But it was a choice that I made as a child. I was literally a child. I was 21 years old, got pregnant in this religious atmosphere. So the decision to get married to him was not made under any circumstances of there was no wisdom in that. I never even heard the term red flag, but in hindsight, there was 100 of them. I didn't recognize them. Now, I always have to pause and say that my ex-husband is a wonderful man. He's a wonderful person. He was a beautiful father. He did an awesome job, parenting with me. And he's a great guy. But there's so many things about him that for so long, I didn't recognize that the problem that it was because I was so busy doing the religious thing,
Right.
God heal my marriage. God heal this marriage. God gonna fix this marriage. That's the man God chose for me. So I gotta stay, and even after I divorced him the first time, I made so many dumb decisions after that I ended up going back because I felt like the divorce was a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake. It's all, I look at it all as a learning process. You know what I mean? I grew up because of all the things that I had to face, being his wife. But the issue that I finally realized in my late 50s was that he doesn't have what I need. It's not that he's not willing to give me what I need or willing to be who I need. He doesn't have it. He was raised by his grandmother, and he didn't have a relationship with either of his parents. So there was a lot that he didn't get growing up because, there's parental input is vital with kids, and he had none. So he's, still figuring out how to grow up and be a man, even after we got married, you know what I mean? Issues. But I finally had to admit to myself that he doesn't have what I need. And I just celebrated my 60th birthday. So the question was, do I want to spend the rest of my life dealing with these issues with this man? I love him. I love him to this day. And we're very good friends. But I can't do wife to somebody who doesn't have what I need. And I realized recently that it's only been a year and a half since I left, that he'll never have it. That doesn't make him a bad person. That doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like I said before, it was a decision that was made when I was a child. So I just had to accept the truth that this ain't it.
Right.
We did a great thing. I actually believe, now this, people can take this or leave it. I believe the purpose for us coming together was Davion, Daniel, and Darryl. That's what I believe. They were the purpose. And you don't, whether you look at it that way or not, that is the beauty that came out of this marriage that was stillborn. Our marriage was like stillborn. The marriage, you know what I'm saying? Because when we got together, neither of us had the tools that are required to nurture and to develop a mature relationship. Neither of us had that. Right. And we didn't know how to communicate. Both of us were non-confrontational, so we just kind of avoided stuff. Neither of us knew how to handle money at all. So you can imagine what a tragedy that was for so many years. Just, oh my God. And it was like, you know what? I don't have to do this. Right. And I'm okay with that. Because, I'm sorry, you got a question? I can stop.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm trying to make him my answer.
Let me say what I'm not saying. I am not advocating divorce. Right. I am not an advocate for divorce. I am an advocate for being healthy and living a life that is healthy, like doing what's best for you. Right. When you finally grow up, like I finally grew up, it took me a long time, and I realized what was best for me, and I realized that he didn't have it. As much as I love him and as cool a person is, and let me give an example of what I mean, because people may be wondering what I mean when I say he doesn't have what I need. Okay, so one of my, I'm trying to do this the short way. But I have to kind of go around a little bit. So when I was a teenager, and this is all relevant because it's all about the kids in the book. When I was 7 years old, I started taking piano lessons. And I didn't like my teacher because he used to pop my fingers. So I told my mom, I don't want to take piano lessons. She said, okay. When I turned 14 and got to high school, I was upset with my mom, really upset. Like, why didn't you just get me another teacher and just persist, right? So I decided at the age of 15 that when I have kids, I'm going to teach them music, whether they want to learn it or not. Another decision that I made at 15 was that I am not going to ever be a fat woman. And so I dove into the healthy mindset and eating right and exercising. And I've done that my whole entire life. My ex-husband is a diabetic. And so for 25 years, And this is my explanation for one of the examples of what I mean when I say he doesn't have what I need. So for 25 years, I preached to him health. I was on his case constantly. Baby, you can't eat that. Baby, that's way too much sugar. Oh my God. I don't want, where you want to go eat? I want fried chicken. I don't want fried chicken. I want a salad. I want something. So that was a clash. And that is, I mean, the way you eat is a huge part of who you are. It's a huge part of your overall, it is your health, what you put it. And I could never convince him to change his mindset about health. He's now diabetic. He wasn't when I was preaching to him about the sugar, but he eventually was diagnosed with diabetes. And even, I'm sorry, I always pause because I don't want to make him look bad.
No,
but
no, not at all.
Even to this day, as a diabetic, he eats the same. That was a battle that I got tired of fighting. We're so different in so many ways. And when I finally accepted that, I was like, okay, it's all right if I don't want to be your wife, because it was a decision I made as a child. Mm-hmm. I made that decision before my brain was fully developed. So, it's true.
And how old was he at the time?
He was 27. His brain was
well,
barely formed.
Barely. He was 27. I was 21.
So do you think that one of the reasons or when you said that in your book, there was a wound that just never really completely healed from when your parents divorced. Do you think that played a part in your going back and staying for as long as you did?
Definitely. It was the reason I stayed as long as I did initially. That and the church and the religious mindset is why I stayed and why I went back. Mm-hmm. I've only in the last couple of years have I graduated from the oppressive mindset that can come with religion. Mm-hmm. I love God. I love the word of God.
Yes.
But religion, I got issues with religion and what it does to people. It's not a lot of religious cultural habits and things that happen in church and and Christianity is just not healthy. It's not healthy. So yeah, that was definitely my parents' divorce. Because I decided, after my mom left my dad, I felt like life was over. Yeah. And so that feeling, and it really, there was a movie that came out when I was 17 called Children of Divorce. I was 17, right? My parents, it was 8 years after my parents divorce. And I remember my mom and I were watching the movie, and towards the end of the movie, I sat there and tears just started rolling down my face. And then before it was all over, I was sobbing uncontrollably because it crushed me. Yeah. My parents divorced and never getting back together. And so I didn't want to do that to my kids. And so, yes, that was a huge part of me staying. And then I would rather have been on your show talking about the success of our marriage. I really would. But I'm the one that has to live the day-to-day with him.
That's right.
That's right.
And I know what is healthy and what is not. And I know what it would have taken it. And I already lived a life of self-sacrifice just as a mother and those boys. I sacrificed a lot to be there for my kids and to stay in that marriage. And I figured, 60, self-sacrifice can kind of,
take a back seat.
Did that already,
Take a back seat. No, I hear and it's funny, the thing about Married into Crazy. So first off, crazy stands for compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where it only works when both parties are willing to work on some aspect of being crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
We're not, and there's times where people reach out to us like for coaching and what have you. And our number one question is like, are both parties willing to put in the work on this?
Put the work in.
It can't be I need an exterior person to come in and save our marriage. That don't work.
You have to be active. You have to participate in your own rescue.
Both.
Right?
Yeah, both of you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, when it comes to being married into crazy, look, don't get it twisted. We are very pro-marriage, but that does not make us anti-divorce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there is just, like I said the other day, everybody just ain't meant to be married.
Right.
It's true.
I love that. I'm pro-marriage too. I'm just not married.
I like you. So, with all these things that you've been through. So, I mean, we're talking about the music career. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about all these different things, this evolution of self evolution of womanhood.
I love that.
How did you, and I really want you to get into, in the midst of all of this, as God was working on you, how did you raise 3 kings?
You know, that's the reason I wrote the book, because I got that question often. People would see my sons and go, how'd you do? You know? So what I did was I remembered much of what I did as a parent was what I wished my parents had done.
Mm-hmm.
It stuck with me, you know, like, for example, the piano lessons. And I've always been like the top of my class. I've always been one of the smartest kids in my class. And so I always made good grades. But my mom, she figured because I made good grades, I was a good girl. But I was out doing a little bit of everything. I told you preteens, I was out, you know, smoking, drinking, having sex. I'm talking about 12, 13, just wildcat, right? And my mother never knew. She never knew until it's funny now when she watches these interviews, she'd be like, you what? She 82 years old, and she's just now finding out what I was doing as a teenager. And because of that, because I knew she was completely unaware, that was another decision I made as a young girl. When I have kids, I'm gonna focus my attention on them. Yeah. I'm gonna know everything they're doing. I'm gonna know their friends. I'm gonna watch them. They will not ever be somewhere that I don't know where.
Right.
That's not gonna happen. And so I was very intentional and focused on my sons. And when I said I did a lot of self-sacrifice, I did. I mean, when I gave up, I had the opportunity to go on a tour with Stevie Wonder when they were like 3, 4, and 5, or 4, 5, and 6, or something like that. A 3-month tour to Japan. And it was a dream of mine, but I couldn't go. And I actually auditioned I auditioned just because I wanted to meet him. And then when they hired me, I was like, oh, I can't leave my babies for 3 months. And if I leave my job for 3 months, I won't have a job when I get back. So for those 2 reasons, I made a sacrifice. I sacrificed to make sure that they had everything I didn't have. And it also, raising those young men, and I say this in every interview, so people who have seen me several times, I tell this because a lot of parents don't realize that you only have 7 years to make your children who they're going to be. The first 7 years of their lives is when their minds are like sponges.
Yeah.
Everything that happens, everything they see, hear, witness, you know, and everything you do and say, and whatever from anywhere, it becomes a part of their subconscious programming. So subconscious mind, which stays with them throughout life. And so I had 7 years to give them what they needed, the first 7 years of their life. So I literally poured myself into my sons. And I did, you know, I didn't even know about the 7-year thing until later, but I'm just grateful to God that he gave me that awareness where I knew that they needed my attention. I never put them in daycare. There were no babysitters. My mom was the babysitter, my mom and my Aunt Linda. You know, I rarely left them. I never let them go anywhere. And I know this sounds like I was a very oppressive, abusive parent, but no, I was attentive. And I was, even though I didn't let them go, like spend the night at other people's houses or anything, I was always making sure that they had a good time. We took them on vacations, and we put them in karate lessons, and they were in Little League, and of course they had the music lessons from me all the time. And so I poured myself into my sons. I gave them my undivided attention. And it makes me sad today to know that many parents, not most, but many parents can't even afford to do that because they're struggling so with the make a living and then build a career and build a business and make money and take care of the expenses and all of that, while the kids are getting their stuff from somebody else.
Right.
And I wasn't gonna let that happen. That's like they're gonna get what I have. I'm gonna give them everything I have. I'm gonna make sure I keep my eyes on them. I was actually accused of being overprotective. I didn't care.
Right.
So be overprotective. But yeah, I mean, I focused on them and I loved them hard. That's the thing. Love them hard. Listen to them. Respected them. That was another thing. As young men, they were little guys. I can't say I never yelled at them because that would be untrue. But I rarely raised my voice at them because I knew when they were like 8, 9, and 10 that I was raising men. You know? And so I respected them as men. And we had that kind of relationship. I listened to them, I communicated with them, but I was a disciplinarian also. So when you ask how I did it, those are all the ingredients.
How did you strike that balance between being an attentive parent that was dedicated to the children versus being the overbearing, that what do you want to call it? The stereotypical overbearing, you're going to do it my way kind of thing, or what I mean, that what do they call them now? Like tiger moms or helicopter moms?
Yeah. I might have been no, that's not true. So here's the thing. There's this thought process or psychology in parenting today in society that, you allow your children to choose. You don't force them to do anything. That's like one of the things in the belief system, but that's popular among parenting. I don't believe in that. I believe because children come into the world not knowing a thing.
That's right.
They don't know anything. They don't know. Just like me at 7, I didn't know that I was going to be a musician, and I chose not to take piano lessons. That's a perfect example of the need for a parent to take control until the child is old enough to make their own decisions. That's the thing. I gradually allowed them, their own choices. But at first, like up at, as little babies and toddlers, and even, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I was in charge. And I didn't care that people thought I was being too hard on them. I was in charge. I made the decisions for them. When they exhibited the ability to make wise choices, then I would allow them to make choices, but not before. So yeah, I might have been a little bit strict. I was kind of strict.
No,
but I balanced it with the love.
There you go.
Yeah, it was.
And the proof. See, there's a thing. There's certain metrics that we all say. Success leaves clues.
Yeah.
And when you look at, okay, let's be honest. We have people that listen all over the world. And Inglewood, California, if you don't know by now, it can be a difficult place to raise a family.
Yes.
And we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's done nothing but, and even back then, it was an extremely difficult place.
Yeah, the climate was very
right. Yeah. I mean, if you know about Snoop, if you know about the culture.
Life. Oh yeah, they were surrounded with that stuff, which was another reason I was overprotective. I didn't allow them public transportation. I allowed them to ride the bus. I was either going to drive them or they did sometimes. It's one of those things. Me and their father got into it about. He's like, let them boys catch the bus. Hey boys, let them be boys. Let them be men. Like no, I'm gonna drive them. And then soon as Daniel turned 16, he got a car, and he drove them. Yeah. There
you go. Yeah. No, but it's one of those things where we have to look, I'm a firm believer that when you come into this world, you're butt naked and by yourself. And
I love that.
You are responsible for you and those you bring into the world.
Yes. Yes. Right. And I knew that they were my responsibility. Point blank, period. Everything about them. And I took that responsibility serious. As a matter of fact, there's something about, like, you have kids. So is it Snooky? I'm sorry. I'm saying your name.
Snooks. Just Snooks.
Okay. Snooks. You've given birth. So you know what I'm saying when I mean there's something about that responsibility when you carry that child and you push that child out, and that's your not creation, but you know what I mean? The product of you.
Yep.
It's an awesome responsibility. And what I did know, what I was aware of was that it was on me to determine who they became. And a lot of parents don't think like that. It's on you as a mom and a dad to be the architect of their lives. You lay the foundation for their entire lives. And I knew that. I knew that because my foundation, like I've said before, was shaky. The foundation, I don't fault my parents,
Right.
They knew. And so I happened to know more, and I learned from them. I learned from their mistakes. And so, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, just the fact that you are who you are. I mean, you are absolutely beautiful too, because seriously, I'm not even trying to blow smoke. You're beautiful. And you were able to overcome what you overcame, like telling the story about the I'm 7 months pregnant and I'm out here doing drugs. Soon as I get some money, it's like your hands start itching for, what movie is that? Pookie. And he like
New Jack City.
New Jack City.
Right.
I mean, now I'm fiending
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So what was it that when you were able to just say, okay, I'm done and I'm just walking away from that? What was it? What was the thing that was the turning factor for you?
It was my babies. They were 1, 2, and 3 when I got high for the last time. And it was because I was in the room one night in my bedroom getting high, and they were in there with me, our bedroom, and they were asleep, and I'm getting high. And Davion, my 3-year-old, woke up and he asked me, "Mama, what you doing?" That every time I think about it, I remember the feeling, how low I felt. Like, and I told him a lie. I said, "I'm taking some medicine, baby." And at that point I had to decide, either I'm going to be a drug addict or I'm going to be a mother. And so, that was the turning point for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. God has been active in your life.
Yes.
And, and this ministry that you have, it goes way beyond music. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh.
And I hope that everyone that's listening right now need to do several things. First and foremost, it's time to evaluate, get into this evaluation mode of, where am I? What kind of impact am I having on my children? If you have children.
Yes.
If you don't have children, you are around. There's little people, I guarantee, that are around you, that are looking at you, watching you. Ask yourself, what kind of impact am I having on those little people?
Absolutely.
Whether you gave birth to them or not.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because
then,
the stuff that goes in their brain doesn't have to come from the parents.
That's right.
It's
Amen.
anybody around them. Yeah. I'm
That's
sorry.
right.
No. And it's just, and aside from asking what kind of impact am I having on those lives, start to ask, what kind of, if you were to look at me and think about what kind of ministry do I have, whether you're like involved in the church or not, if there was a ministry of self and what you're doing, what would that ministry be? What are you projecting out in the world?
Right.
Because I look at Jackie right now and I'm thinking, man, the light about you is beaming.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. And it has nothing to do with Sacramento lighting the beam and basketball and all that. Had to get it in there just a little bit.
So silly.
Okay.
No, but it is. No, it's a beautiful thing. And the other thing is that everybody should be thinking about is, where can I get this book? How do I get Raising Kings?
Yes. You can get it on Amazon.com, Jackie Gouché, Gouche. You can get it on JackieGouché.com. You can order it. And if you order it from my website, then you'll get a signed copy, because I mail those. I send those out. Yeah. And there's an audiobook that is my voice, which I feel really special about that. I'm excited about that, because not only did I read it, but there are also snippets in the audiobook. You hear my mother sing, my mother's amazing voice 50 years ago. She sounds just like Aretha Franklin. So there's a snippet of her in the first chapter. You get snippets of my 3 kings when they were little guys, the very first demo that they did. You get to hear that. And then some of the songs that they recorded, because they had when they were 10, 11, and 12, they had a record deal with DreamWorks Records, and they actually recorded some music, but it never got released, thank God. But those snippets are also in the audiobook as well. And there's a snippet of me singing at the age of 16. So it's a little brief. Raindrops on roses. When I was a teenager and I did this tour. So you get to hear a little bit of, the live music.
That's so cool.
From the past. Yeah.
So it's so funny to me that you even bring up that you said Aretha Franklin, because there was a part in the book when you were talking about your mom like auditioning, or she was performing and you could only stay for like the first set. I don't know why, but that I was like, immediately I thought about the movie Respect. I don't know. It was, I pictured the little girl sitting down with her little cup of Kool-Aid or whatever, listening to, you know.
For us, it was Shirley Temples.
Right, yeah, Shirley. that I just found that's funny that you said Aretha Franklin, because when I was reading that, I was like, oh, that reminds me of the movie, respect. So
This is great. Look, we want to respect your time. Like, you've been dropping gems from the very beginning. And it's very inspiring. It's encouraging. And when you talked about how even all the stuff that you were going through, God was always active in your life.
Yeah.
I think that, I hope everyone catches that it's like, you don't go to church. Just because you go to church doesn't mean you are of the church. That's like saying, just because I sleep in a garage, I'm a car.
Exactly. Never heard that one.
No, but I do think that you allow the work to be done in your life. And I want to thank you on behalf of all the D-Smoke fans, all the Sir fans, and all the soon-to-be Davion fans. Thank you for going what you went through to bring other beams of light into this world that are positively affecting so many others.
So, I mean, I just want to ask some questions that, you know, we normally would
I'm
ask.
okay. You said you want to respect my time. I'm here as long as you need me.
Okay, it's on now. Let's go.
So, if there was a gigantic billboard, if you had a gigantic billboard, and you could put anything that you wanted to put on there, what would it say?
I have one message that is like the core of everything I say, is that God is with you, no matter who you are or where you are, whether you believe in him or not. He's with you. And so I like to encourage, I don't know what I would put on the billboard. I don't know how I could word that, but God is with you. That's the whole point. God has been with me. He's not, and I could get deeper into this as a real message. He's not only with us, he's in us. You know, we are all made up of a part of God. God is in everyone, whether people want to believe that or realize it or not. We are made up of the stuff of God. And so really, it doesn't take going to church, and it doesn't take being a Bible scholar. You know, it just takes a mind and a heart and a desire to connect with the source of your life. You know what I mean? And so that's my point, or my message to people, is connect with the source. Because without it, you are floundering and flailing throughout your life trying to figure this thing out. You know, without him, I don't know how people do it. You know, and I'm not trying to convert anybody to Christianity or convert anybody to anything.
Right.
I'm trying to inspire and encourage people to just connect with God.
Right.
You know,
right. You're telling your truth, you know, and I think that a lot of times people are, oh, here you go again. Because I have a brother who every time we be, oh, here we go, always got to be about Jesus or whatever. I'm like, boy, if you don't make me, I'm going to smack you, you know, but find that connection. What is the thing that centers you? What is the thing that grounds you, you know? So.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point, because I love when you said that you don't have to be a Bible scholar or what have you. So many people think they have to get right. They have to do something before they can go to Christ, before they can actually form a relationship with God. And I always think back to, there was a quote, there was an interview that Steve Harvey did once, and he was talking about, show me in the Bible. Okay, so what degree did Jesus have? And he's like, what degree did, you know, all these different, he goes, none of these people, he goes, anybody that actually did anything, the people that are spoken about, and they weren't learned individuals. And it's funny, even right now, when you were talking about, you know, Christianity, and you think you got to be this, you think you got to be that, you don't have to be a Bible scholar, you just have to be right in your heart and your mind, to have the right mindset. I'm like, and I immediately thought, people always forget about Jesus's cousin. John was out there looking crazy.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yes.
For doing his thing. It's always the cousin, right? It's always the cousin. But it's one of those things, but as that time was developing, it was still one of those things where just open up your heart and your mind.
Yeah. Simple. Yeah.
Very simple.
So I know that, you know, you divorced 3 times, married 3 times. So right now, if you were able to go back and talk to your newlywed self, what would you say? She said, You said you can't say run.
No, okay. That's funny. Okay, so the newlywed means I'm already married.
Yeah, like y'all just jump the broom or whatever,
Yeah.
you sign the license, and now you have a minute to yourself, what would you go back and tell the newlywed you?
I would go back. Oh my God, there's so much that I could say to her. One of the things I would say to that young woman is that you are beautiful. But she didn't know it. She didn't know it at all. In fact, it was part of my issue was my low self-esteem. And I was excited that somebody wanted to marry me because I didn't see myself as attractive, or, you know, my gift was that I could sing. And I always leaned on that, but I didn't know my own worth. I didn't know my own beauty. I just felt like, oh, he likes me, you know? So the first thing I would tell her is how beautiful she is, and hope that she believed me. And the other thing that I would tell her is, don't get high with him. Let him get high by himself. Don't you jump on the bandwagon. I actually started because he had some, and I asked him if I could try it. Now I was already smoking weed.
Right.
You know, he was doing cocaine and I was doing weed. And he had so much. He had won some money on a game show and he had a whole bunch. And he was just sitting there with this pile of drugs on the table. And I was like, let me try it. I would tell her, don't try it.
Don't, yeah.
Sounds like there's another book in you. If you haven't already started.
I'm already writing it.
Oh, okay.
I've already started on number 4.
Wow.
There's a few books.
That's amazing. You know, what I do like is how you point out that you had your relationship with Christ, but you were still Jackie. You know what I'm saying? I think the world needs to know, or even recognize, that just because we are Christians, that does not make us perfect. Because there, all of a sudden, you be well, aren't you the Christian? It's like you're supposed to walk through walls, or you're supposed to, you don't do anything wrong, and you know, and it's like, no, that's the wrong message. You know, the message is that he forgives me by his grace. You know, am I saved? And I get to repent and do it again, because in my heart, I really am. I really do want to be a certain way, or not do this thing again. But I just love how you brought out the humanity in Christianity. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
No, I appreciate that.
You said something, I don't know which one of you it was, about, dang, I lost my thought that quick. You said something a minute ago that stuck with me. When it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Let us know.
No worries. Well, Snooks always gets, you know, and we both appreciate you as a human being, because I always joke, it's a standing joke in our household, and even my pastor knows, and he gets mad at me.
Get mad.
But he gives me that look.
Yeah.
And I always tell him that had I been around during the time of Christ, I would have been the 13th apostle. I would have been that brother that was, the 12 are up there. We left Brother Ernie behind because he's still doing some stuff.
He's still at the party where the wine is. That's
right.
where Brother Ernie is.
Right.
They would have been like, where's Brother Ernie? I'm like, you know, Jesus, you made that wine, and he back there still.
That was the point. Okay, I remember that you said you don't have to get it together. You don't have to get right to have a relationship with God. And really, I'm sorry, every time I pause like that, I think about there's like a story behind what I'm trying to say, and I want to make it concise. There is no get right. You know, the church has laid out these rules of what's right and what's wrong. And I mean, you know, everybody is born with a conscience.
Right.
So you know when you're doing something that's not right. You know, you don't need people to tell you, don't do this, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Right. So, but it's not about, like you said, it's not about getting right. It's about becoming who you are, becoming who God created you to be, and fulfilling the purpose for your purpose for being on this earth. It's not about how much sex you do or do not have, or how many drinks you have or don't have. It's not even about that. I think, and crucify me, some people who are listening who are super Christians, I don't think God cares, you know, it's as much about the behavior as he does about the relationship, because the relationship will adjust the behavior.
That's right.
You know? So don't worry about I drink too much, I got some. Don't just engage with him. And the more you get to know him, and the more you walk with him, and you begin to not just to receive his love, but pour his love out and live the life that you are meant to live, then all that stuff it won't be an issue. You know, and that's my experience.
No, I agree. I totally agree with that. And it's like you said, it's not about the rules, it's about the relationship, because he was very relational, you know. I mean, that's why he went to the dinner at the
yes.
Who was it? The tax collector. You know, he didn't be like, oh, I'm finna go eat with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They were the worst ones in the first place. You know,
exactly. The religious
folk.
People.
Yeah,
exactly.
Look, I see a T-shirt coming. Look, it's not about the rules; it's the relationship, and then a cross on there.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Hey, go for it.
You'll put that to music, girl.
Okay.
Look,
that's so funny.
Well, we can go on all night. I thoroughly enjoy this conversation.
Yes, definitely.
We're going to be watching. We want you to really rise, to really grow. This book needs to be in all the hands of those that are raising young men, because it is a difficult time, particularly for men of color.
Yes.
Particularly for Black men in this age, where even now, as we speak in 2023, going into 2024, we're still dealing with the same stuff from the 1950s, from the 1960s. It's just repackaged and refed. It's regurgitated over and over and over again. We've got an entire state of Florida that is trying to take them back to Jim Crow laws.
Right.
It already has. Quite honestly, we're banning books again. You know, so it's one of those things where, and it's just amazing how Amanda Gorman's book, her poetry was just removed from a school system because a parent felt uncomfortable. So these are the things that we're fighting against. And more times than not, it's men, it's our young men that are getting lost in the fray and that are actually, you know, piling up in the graveyards. So your book as a blueprint, as a guide, if you will, for all those mothers that are trying to figure out, how do I do this in this time? I'm excited. So please, anybody listening right now, go to is JackieGouché.com. And
is this backwards to you guys? It is, huh?
No, it's perfect.
Oh, it's backwards to me. Okay, yeah. Raising Kings.
Raising Kings.
But also, you know, there are two other books too. How Would I Know and True Worshipers. So don't just stop at that one. Get those other two also.
Yeah.
You are phenomenal.
I
really appreciate the transparency. I mean, you know, you didn't get on, or even in your stories, trying to sugarcoat, you know, we believe in, we gonna tell it, and judge me if you will. Oh, well, that's on you, you know, but I really appreciate the transparency. And tell Sir I said hi.
Yeah, I will tell him for sure.
That's hilarious.
Well, let me tell you a funny thing about Sir. He was the one who rebelled or who protested the most when I tried to give them music lessons.
Really?
There were 3, 4, and 5, 4, 5, 6, on and on. Just over the years, I taught them, and it was a structured thing. It wasn't just, oh, I think we'll do piano. No, we was like, every day we're going to spend an hour at this piano, and he did not like it. Sir was the one. In fact, he rebelled the whole time. We had to like bribe him or, you know, just threaten him, you know what I mean? And so when he got to high school, he said, I want to play basketball. So he's playing basketball, right? And that's where that line comes from, his song Hair Down. I was just with some hoop dreams. He was serious. He had hoop dreams. He wanted to be a basketball player. And it wasn't until he was like 21 that he came back to music. And of course, everything I taught him was still there. So
right.
So he thanks
me. We thank him. I promise you. We thank him.
I know we keep going. We're like, oh, we're done. Oh no, let's keep going. I just want to say, from a personal note, it means a lot to me to hear your story, to hear the story about your sons. There's redemption and coming back, right? And she mentioned 2 of our children. We have an eldest, our son is 28 and is having difficulties, having challenges. And I love to hear it and see that when seeds are planted and with the right opportunity, that the soil is fertile, and that provided, you know, you keep loving, right? Providing that nurturing, that the roots will take.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Definitely. So with that said, everyone, please do yourself a favor. Don't do me a favor. Do yourself a favor.
Yes. Yes.
And make sure you follow Jackie Gouché. Well, again, I know we said it earlier, but if once again, you can give all your handles when it comes to social media.
It's at Instagram is J Gouché. And Facebook is Jackie Gouché. Those are only two I use. I mean, I'm on Twitter, but I don't really do it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, you can find me at my website, JackieGouché.com, and Instagram at JGouché Music, and Facebook at Jackie Gouché.
I did have a question that I wanted to. You said that I did have a question. So, with the remake of Color Purple coming back out, are you going to be part of that project, or you doing your own thing now?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't have anything to do with that. That's
okay.
35 years old.
Yeah, I just wondered.
I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Look, and I'm gonna be comparing. I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, let me hear.
I'm like you. I know every line to the whole script. I know it.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
So. Well, hey, thank you once again for making time to come on to the Married into Crazy podcast. Please keep being that second letter of crazy, which is real. Keep being real and sharing yourself with the world, please. Not
just that. I feel like the zealousness for Christ, that just shows when you're talking, So yeah, stay crazy in all areas. Stay crazy. Sometimes crazy is just really crazy, It's not,
Right. Well, like we always say, until the next time, be blessed.
Bye-bye.